The book of Ruth in the Bible reveals the heart of God. The book starts with a test for a mother-in-law named Naomi. Naomi's story is like the story of Job. God tests them, as Job and Naomi have full lives. They go from emptiness to vindication and finally to redemption. After the death of her husband and sons, Naomi returns to Bethlehem with her daughter-in-law, Ruth. Naomi says, "Do not call me Naomi ever again, for I am no longer pleasant. Call me Mara instead, for I am filled with bitterness, because the highest one, God, has treated me bitterly." Ruth decides to gather what grain she could from the field of a relative of Naomi's called Boaz. God's law established a culture of generosity. Knowing there would be people such as widows, orphans, and resident aliens who would be too poor to farm for themselves. God set limits on how much each farmer could harvest from his own field. The remaining grain in the field is called gleanings, and those were left for the poor. Boaz hears of the troubles of Naomi and her kind and loyal daughter-in-law, Ruth, and instructs his workers to leave extra grain for Ruth to gather. Boaz says to Ruth, "Listen to me, my daughter. Do not go and glean in any other field. In fact, do not go outside my property at all, but stay with the young women who work for me, following the harvesters and bundling the grain into sheaves. Watch the harvesters and see which field they are working in. Follow along behind these servants of mine. I have warned the young men not to touch you. If you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars my young men have filled for the harvesters." Overwhelmed, Ruth bowed down before Boaz, putting her face to the ground in front of him. Ruth says, "I'm just a foreigner. Why have you noticed me and treated me as if I'm one of your favorites?" And Boaz says, "I've heard your story. I know about everything you have done for your mother-in-law since your own husband died. I know you left your own mother and father, your home and your country, and you have come to live in a culture that must seem strange to you. May the eternal God repay you for your sacrifices and reward you richly for what you have done. It is under the wings of Israel's God, the Eternal One, that you have sought shelter." Later, following Naomi's instructions, Ruth makes it known to Boaz that she is available for marriage. Boaz considers this a kindness because he knows there is a younger, closer relative of Naomi's who is also in line to act as a kinsman redeemer for the two women and their property. After very public negotiations before the elders of the city, the younger kinsman redeemer decides not to risk his own property and lineage, as it is understood he would have to marry Ruth. So, Boaz continues to do the right and honorable thing, which is to take on the responsibility of marrying Ruth and bringing the two women under his protection. Boaz says to the elders and all the people, "I secured the rights to everything that belonged to Elimelech and his sons from Naomi. I have also taken the responsibility for Ruth, the woman from Moab who was married to Mahlon. She will become my wife. I will see to it that his family and this city remembers Mahlon. I will raise children who will bear his name and make sure his property stays in the family. You are all witnesses to this today. After Boaz marries Ruth and she has a son, the women say to Naomi, "Praise the eternal God. He has not abandoned you. He did not leave you without a redeeming guardian. May your offspring become famous all through Israel. May this child give you a new life. May he strengthen you and provide for you in your old age. Look at your daughter-in-law Ruth. She loves you. This one devoted daughter is better to you than 7 sons would be. She is the one who gave you this child." Then Naomi held the child tightly in her arms and cared for him. All around her, friends cried out, "Naomi has a son." They named the child Obed because he would provide for his grandmother. Obed grew up and became the father of Jesse. Jesse too became a father one day, the father of David. And in the line of King David, a son was born, and he would be our kinsman redeemer, Jesus Christ.